Okay, can everyone still hear me?
Yep,
Yeah, we
good to
hear you
go.
fine.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to the Kentucky Monthly Climate Perspective on Drought and Hydrological Conditions for May 2024. And as usual, this webinar series is presented by the Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky University in partnership with NIDIS, the National Integrated Drought Information System, and in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. Production and delivery of this webinar reflects the contributions of many partners committed to serving the needs of the Commonwealth of Kentucky and its people. Our next regularly scheduled webinar, again, is the first Thursday of each month. And for next month, that'll be June 6th, 2024. And as normal, that'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central Time. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing afterwards. And it is being live streamed on the Kentucky Climate Center YouTube channel. And if you're interested in prior months, we do have a webinar archive available on the YouTube channel. So with that, let's get started. What you're seeing there is a picture of our new camera at our Pike County site. We did have a camera there, but it had some issues, and so we've not had a picture from there for a while. So this is our newly restored camera there in Pike County. And during the course of this presentation, we'll look at some recent conditions, conditions over the past 30 days, over the past month during April, and then we'll look at some of the impacts from that. And then we'll look ahead at the short-term and long-term outlooks. And what you see on the left there is the total eclipse seen from our Ballard County site on April 8th. That's a picture during totality. We had several of our field technicians there with drones, and that's what it looked like under totality. It was one of the better counties in the state to see the totality. It lasted for a couple of minutes, and it was a beautiful sight. We also had some temporary stations that we set up to monitor that. And if you haven't seen data from that, this is courtesy of Eric Rappin, Dr. Eric Rappin here at the Kentucky Climate Center. And this is data from, I believe it's 1 minute data from one of those stations. What you see here in blue is the solar radiation. And we had some early morning fog, some pretty thick fog there at Ballard County, and some high clouds. And then as the eclipse approached, those clouds moved out, and you see the pretty rapid drop and rise during that during that eclipse. And it was right at 1900, roughly right at 2 o'clock. And the red line is the wind speed. And a lot of our wind speed, especially during the day, is driven by turbulence, by the heating of the ground. And as soon as that sun went away, you see that wind died because that turbulence collapsed. And following the eclipse, it takes almost an hour before that wind ramps back up as that solar radiation increases again. So pretty rapid response to the solar radiation. On the right-hand side is the temperature and relative humidity plots. The temperature plots are the solid lines, and we had temperatures at 0.5 meter, 2 meters, and 7 meters above ground on the tower. And what you see is the lowest, the blue line, which is the temperature closest, nearest the ground at just 0.5 meter high, responds the fastest. Of course, it's the warmest just before the eclipse starts. And then once that eclipse begins, then it cools the fastest because it's lost that solar heating. And so it dropped from roughly 24.5 degrees Celsius all the way down to about 19 and a half. So it dropped about almost 5 degrees Celsius. So pretty big drop there. And the relative humidity at those heights is shown on the dashed lines. And you see whenever the temperature drops, the humidity rises. And that's how you get your dew during the night. But so you see the jump there in the relative humidity. But pretty fun traces, pretty dramatic impact from that eclipse. And I hope you got to see it. It was really a sight to see. Well, enough about the eclipse. I also think we've had just a beautiful spring. This again is a picture from our Pike County site, the Drought station. Looking out, you see some nice colors in the trees there, morning fog, just a beautiful sight. So we've been, as everyone knows, pretty warm this spring. Overall, statewide, we averaged about 3.8 degrees above normal for the month of April. And that puts us at this probably about the 11th warmest April out of our 130-year record. So pretty warm, and definitely a top 10 or close to a top 10 record year, record month. And but a lot of that warmth during April came with our nighttime lows. Now lower right there, you see our nighttime lows averaged over 3 degrees over most of the state, 3 or 4 degrees over a large part of the state. Our daytime highs, maximum highs, were also warm, but generally closer to maybe a 1 degree above average over a lot of the state. So again, statewide, we were almost 4 degrees above average. And that was pretty much every climate division across the state averaged anywhere from 3.5 to 4.2 degrees above average. Now, year to date is similar. We're 3.6 degrees above normal if you go back to January through the end of April. And nighttime highs and lows were warm, roughly 3 to 4 or more degrees above average. And that puts this year as the 8th warmest on record so far. And in comparison with last year, which was the 3rd warmest on record. Now this year we're still, a lot of the warmth we saw early in the year, especially over the winter, was probably largely El Nino driven. And as we'll see, that's rapidly fading away, but maybe still seeing a little residual from that. Now let's turn to rainfall. It's we're hanging in there. This is the estimates, the precip estimates and measurement measurements from the last 7 days. If you were lucky, you were under one of those yellow or dark green bands. So anywhere from 1 or over 2 inches of rainfall. But it was largely convective, so you see those lines in there from those convective cells that moved from the southwest to the northeast. On the other hand, if you were in the eastern half of the state, not barely over half an inch in some areas not even that. But the good news was the areas that were the driest got at least largely got over an inch of rain. Now, if we go back 2 weeks, we see kind of a similar pattern. The western half of the state got the bulk of the rainfall, but they're also the drier areas. So, but on the other hand, the eastern half of the state missed out on a lot of that. And here in Kentucky, we average 50 inches of rainfall a year, so you really want to see at least an inch per week. And this is a 2-week average. So you see most areas are some areas, again, the west, 2 to 3 inches, areas to the east, less than an inch and a half. So really about half of what we'd like to see, a lot of areas for the spring. We go back a month and we start to see that areas to the east, southeast, along the southern tier, especially the Jackson Purchase area, less than 4 inches. On the other hand, areas of central northern Kentucky, 5-6 inches. So that's a lot closer to what we'd like to see for this time of year. If we go back 2 months, kind of a similar pattern, areas across central Kentucky, northern Kentucky, 7-8+ inches. On the other hand, across the southern tier east, the far west, you see some 4 or 5 inches in there, and that's not good for a 2-month period. And then we go back the full 90 days, and again, somewhat similar pattern, although the numbers are quite a bit closer here. pretty much most of the state has over 10 inches. Some areas a little more, some a little less. Some dry areas, particularly across the west, you see some 7 inches, 8 inches. So quite a bit drier in some local areas. So in summary, looking back at April, we see that areas of central northern Kentucky received the most, 5+ inches across the bluegrass area, and north central Kentucky, on the other hand, the far west, southern tier, the east, quite a bit less. And when you look at these percent of normals, you see quite a bit drier, less than 75% of average for the month across those areas. And this will show up again when we look at the current drought monitor. And again, when we go back to January 1st, we see that pretty much the whole state's got fairly good amounts. Just some dry areas to the west that's received less than 75%, but overall areas of central Kentucky have received at or above normal, and around that a little bit less. Now, when we dive into the numbers, we see that statewide, we're running about a 1/2 inch, 0.59 inches above normal for the year, which puts us at 114% of average. But when you break that down by region, for example, the Climate Division 4, which is Appalachia, Eastern Kentucky, they're running about 98% of normal. So we're not doing bad for the year, but it could be a little better. April ranked as the 45th wettest April on record, so we're actually doing not too bad, considering that's out of a 130-year record. And when you look at the year to date, we're running about 105%. So right about at normal for this time of year for the year. And that puts us at 55th wettest on record out of the 130 years. So a little bit of replenishment following the dry end of last year. Now, looking at the drought monitor, we see that we're not doing too bad here in Kentucky. Still some areas in the plains, Kansas up through Iowa, that's had issues for a while. Arizona and New Mexico, West Texas, northern tier, across Montana, across the northern border. Some areas now popping up across the southeast, abnormally dry, not drought yet. This will probably go away over the next several weeks, but for now, pockets of dry weather. When we zoom into Kentucky, we do see that Jackson Purchase area, Ballard County, areas around that are now in moderate drought. And but that dryness pretty much extends most of the way across the southern tier. And as we'll see, we'll have to keep an eye on these areas to make sure that moderate drought doesn't come back. Also, some areas of eastern Kentucky look rather dry right now, or could become dry. If we look at the drought change from 4 weeks ago, we see that there has been some improvement across western Kentucky. Not too much change across the southern tier in Jackson Purchase, and then a little bit drier across the southeast. And again, that's part of a broader trend. You see some drawing across the southeast, portions of the southeast and Midwest. But some improvement in the lower Mississippi, or the upper Mississippi Valley, Missouri Valley area, western Kentucky. So some improvement there, but we want to see more improvement. And I think we will, looking ahead. Looking at the NASA estimates drought indicator, I really don't like this. I think it's got some mistakes. It shows quite a bit of dryness over maybe the wetter areas of Kentucky. I don't think that really reflects reality. I think this soil moisture ranking percentile is probably a lot more accurate. It's kind of highlighting that area of western Kentucky and even picks up on some of that dryness in eastern Kentucky. And again, when we look at the stream flows, if we look at the last month 28-day average, that kind of reflects that dryness we're seeing both out west as as well as across the southern tier and a few pockets in the east. When we look at the 7-day average, uh, we see some very low estimates from some streams, especially across the east, some pockets across the west. But this is the 7-day average, so I think some of that more recent rainfall uh, will have probably helped some of these, at least across central and western regions of the state. When we look at the evaporative demand index, the EDDI, it's an experimental index. It kind of picks up on this dryness across Kentucky, but also the warm temperatures we've had and the sun that we've had this spring. We haven't run the mesonet measurements to confirm this, but I'm just wondering if this spring has been sunnier than in some previous springs, which would help drive this evaporative index. If we go back 3 months, it really highlights it even more. But we've also had, we're at least getting average, if not above average rainfall as well. So that helps with this as well. Now, if we look at just some sample soil moisture readings across the state, we see that we were drying out towards the end of April at many of our stations, but then we had that heavy rainfall on April 30th. And so for at least some counties to the west, Hart County, for example, you see the top three. Well, the lowest measurement at 20 inches is saturated, both here in Hart County and Graves County. In fact, all 4 counties, the lower depths are fairly saturated, but it's those upper depths that have dried out. And so with that rain on April 30th, you see a jump in the soil moisture at 2, 4, 8 inches, and nice response there. And you see the same there in Graves County. They had gotten some rain back on April 26th, but that had dried out. And then with that additional rain on the 3rd, 29th, that helped even more. So improvement there, both Hart, Graves County. Lewis, not quite as much rain, not quite the response, although you do see a 2-inch response and some improvement at 4 inches. Same with Owsley County. You see a nice response at 2 and 4 inches. And the lower depths are fairly saturated. So it looks like we're doing pretty good, at least these sample sites. Now, turning to severe weather, we did have our fair share of it during April, which is somewhat expected for this time of year. This is our more active period that we're seeing severe weather, and April definitely started out with a show on the 1st and 2nd. This is, again, a picture from our Pike County site. You see some nice storms off there in the distance. Here's another gust front in Boone County. Nice picture there. So quite a bit of severe weather around during the month. There were 6 days where some kind of severe weather was reported across the state. Most of that activity was on the 1st and 2nd, but we also had some storms across eastern Kentucky on the 11th, some isolated storms on the 12th, including a tornado, and then just a pocket around the Louisville area on the 15th, and then a few more storms, mostly around the Louisville area up towards Cincinnati on the 18th. So 6 days of severe storms, and altogether we had a total of 27 tornado reports, 70 severe thunderstorm reports, 9 hail reports, including 1 observation of hail up to 1.25 inches, and then 10 flash flood reports during the month. This is a nice graphic that shows all the, this is a busy plot, but every warning issued is highlighted here. Warning issued by the National Weather Service. The red polygons are the tornado warning. Yellow polygons are the thunderstorm warnings. And then the green polygons are the flash flood warnings. And overlaid are the reports where the storm reports where something was observed. So you can see the little tornadoes there across the west and then across central and northern Kentucky. Lots of wind reports scattered in there, a couple of hail reports, and the green again are more the flash flooding, which is mostly up towards the northeast. Now this is that same plot, but without the warnings on there, and so you can see where the most of the actual reports were confirmed. Mostly isolated to just a couple of regions, a couple of lines where a particular cell moved through, but overall, it's probably what you'd expect in Kentucky during the spring. A few nights of pretty active weather, but overall not too bad. So this is this list of all the confirmed tornado warnings. Kentucky averages about 21 tornadoes per year, and for the month of April, we had 21 tornadoes in 3 days, mostly with one system that came through on April 1st and 2nd. And this is the list of 21 tornadoes that I could find in the storm reports. Almost all of them were rated as EF1s. There's a couple of EF2s in here. But this makes for interesting reading. You can look at this on the storm reports, but most of these were isolated again to a few relatively small areas, tracks across the state. I don't know that there were any larger than the 3 EF2s, but yeah, quite a few EF1s on this list. All right, well, quickly turning to Kentucky Ag, I don't have a whole lot to say since it's planting season. This is a nice picture from our Butler County site, WDBY, that overlooks the field. And at least near my house here, I've seen a lot of corn coming up and a lot of planting going on. So if had a lot of dry weather for planting, and at least around here, a lot of overnight rains. So hopefully that's been the case in your area as well. Looking at planting across the state, the corn is on track on the 5-year average, a little behind last year, but kind of following our 5-year average. Soybeans is ahead of schedule, ahead of last year, and quite a bit ahead of the 5-year average. And Kentucky winter wheat is ahead of last year and far ahead of the 5-year average. And that winter wheat condition is at least rated 90% is rated good or excellent. So far ahead of the 5-year average and last year. So it looks like good news on the winter wheat. This is a week old, but it looks like winter wheat was good for this spring. Well, looking ahead, this is the QPF 7-day forecast totals, and it looks like, average or slightly above average rainfall for Kentucky. It looks like some pretty good rains coming in both tomorrow as well as maybe at times next week. There is a system moving in from the west, and it looks like heavy rains over the drought areas across the plains, and then it looks like this should help us as well. Turning to the 6 to 10-day outlook, as you can see in the temperature outlook, there's a pretty big trough setting up with trough over the west with a ridge building over the southeast. So we're expected to have warm to very warm temperatures over the southeast, over Kentucky, 6 to 10 days out, with much below normal temperatures across the west. And of course, that's going to bring up a lot of moisture with it, a lot of winds from the Gulf, and that's going to give us some above normal precip, more than likely for the next 6 to 10 days. Now, if we look out 8 to 14 days, we see that trough moving closer, shifting eastward, and we're still in the ridge, but as that frontal system gets closer, they're forecasting possibly a frontal system to stall across the area, which uh, which should stall out between Texas up through the Ohio Valley. So that's why they're forecasting this above normal precip for us for the 8 to 14-day period. When we look at the experimental risk for heavy precipitation outlook, looking ahead, they do have this area circled for a slight chance for heavy precipitation during that period, roughly between May 9th and May 13th. Not all the models are showing this. Some are showing a little bit drier than other models, but that's still an area that is worth watching as we get closer. We could see some pretty heavy rains during that period. And then if we go on out a little further, let me see if I can move my little thing there. If we look out for the full month of May, they're forecasting above normal temperatures for us and above normal precip. And that's probably largely driven by the next several weeks. And then turning towards late summer, June, July, and August, again, above normal temperatures and above normal precip expected for the state. And as we'll get into with El Nino, we are transitioning to a La Nina, and these longer term forecasts will start to be influenced by that. Not necessarily this summer, but more towards the fall and into next winter. And this is that long range outlook again for this summer, above normal precip and equal precip chances for the fall. Again, the last several years we've seen fairly dry falls. And so I guess this could open the door to that. But and then even through the winter, equal chances of precip. But then as we get into next spring, they have this bullseye over Kentucky once again. And this is largely driven by the La Nina forecast that's expected. And here is that forecast. We are currently in an El Nino, but it's rapidly fading. And so they expect by roughly the end of June, we'll be in a neutral phase, and they expect that to quickly transition to a La Nina by mid to late summer. And so by August-ish, we should be in a La Nina phase, and then they're forecasting that to remain so through the period. So right now they're giving it a 60% chance of developing a La Nina by this June to August period. Not all the models are showing that, but the vast majority are. And this is what those various model members show. Again, almost all of them are showing this transition from our current El Nino into a La Nina phase. And the La Nina is defined by anything below this half-degree anomaly. And what does that mean? Well, we've been in an El Nino pattern, which means the upper half of the country is warmer than normal. And with the La Nina, that means that the southern half is above normal. And so you see where Kentucky's above normal temperatures for either of these, we get our coldest in a more of a neutral pattern. And of course, this is primarily influencing our weather in the November to March period. If we look at precip, we see it's the El Nino that typically leads to drier than normal conditions, although we didn't necessarily see that. We did have a dry fall, but for the most part, we've had an average winter. But it's the La Ninas that make for a wet Kentucky. And that's, I think, why you're seeing that bullseye over the Ohio Valley for next spring. Still a long way off, so we'll see. Now, looking at our drought outlook, again, they are with those expected rains coming up over the next several weeks. They're expecting our drought to improve and maybe be removed entirely. And I suspect that'll help those dry areas across southern and eastern Kentucky as well. And then really looking ahead through the season, they're expecting maybe drought to develop across the far west, Arizona, well, New Mexico up through Idaho, far west. But as far as the plains and Ohio Valley, um, no new drought development expected, which is good news. The fire outlook, nothing anywhere near Kentucky. May, June, July, nothing above normal anywhere close to us. And so, in summary, the year remains warm. Again, April was our 11th warmest month, April on record, and the year to date is the 8th warmest. A little cooler than last year, but not a whole lot. And precipitation remains adequate for most of the state across northern and central portions of the state, but we are still dry across areas of the far west, south, southern, and eastern Kentucky. While currently dry, the short-term forecast is for normal to above normal rainfall for Kentucky, with a potential for even heavy rain coming up roughly the 9th through the 13th. And the longer term forecast is also for normal to above normal rainfall across the state, roughly for the remainder of the year, with generally above normal temperatures. And La Nina is coming, probably, and that will impact us maybe longer term. So with that, again, our next regularly scheduled webinar is June 6th, and that'll be the first Thursday of June. And again, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Matt Dixon, or Chip Zimmer. And with that, thank you for your attendance. And I'll go ahead and stop and open this up to discussions. Any questions?
Yeah, would you go back a couple slides to that drought you showed for the drought monitor for the mid? It had one gray spot, and that was Ballard County on the whole state.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let me pull that back up. Let's see. I've got too many things on my screen. Let me move some stuff around so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, let me know when I'm back at the oh yeah,
Right
right
there.
there. Yep. Yep.
One spot in the whole state.
So that's so if we go back to the drought, the current drought monitor, that's basically highlighting the D1 area.
Yep.
So that's what we expect to improve, which is good.
You know, the weather service calls for 2 or 3 inches of rain, and we're getting 2/10 most of those times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that definitely happened last time. Where was it? Yeah. I mean, this kind of shows what missed your area before. Well, this is 30 days. Let me go back. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. 0.6, whereas, around you got double that.
Just had a comment. This is Kevin Jeffries from Oldham County, and we definitely got some tremendous rains and a lot of hail and also some tornadoes in April. So we kind of had it all here, but depending on what part of the county you're in. The northern part of the county didn't get much rain, but then the central southern part got floods.
Right, right. Yeah, I did notice that you had that tornado there in Oldham, and yeah, the
Right,
convective nature of summer rainfall.
right. It was
Yeah.
pretty intense for a while on the 15th.
Oh, right, right.
Just a quick question. What about are y'all hearing anything about the far west as far as the the water levels in Lake Mead and some of those areas that have been suffering drought for several years?
I have not. Matt, do you? I know Chip is not. He's up today.
That would definitely be a Chip question. I apologize. So.
Oh yeah, that's yeah.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. But yeah, it looks like the level, water levels have been coming up in Lake Powell and Lake Mead, and so but then we're getting ready to go into the dry months.
So Shane just texted me. Well, and it's in the chat. It looks like Louisville had the 5th warmest April on record. Lexington the 4th. Bowling Green the 6th. Jackson the 9th. London tied for the 10th warmest.
Wow.
So my estimate of the 11th warmest, maybe that'll come in even higher.
Okay.
So I moved back to Kentucky in fall of 2022. So I've experienced 2 top 10 warmest winter, spring so far. So I'm really spoiled. I might freeze to death if we get a normal one. Any other questions, comments? Well, hopefully our severe weather is done for the spring, but yeah, we'll see. Oh yeah, and Paducah tied for 5th warmest. So we'll see what the Derby has in store for Saturday. I know the last few years has been pretty wet, but hopefully that rain will end long before the horses come out. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Matt, any other, I know I kind of breezed through the ag portion of this, but any additional thoughts on the ag side?
I know there's some headaches out west with severe weather, a little dry in spots and whatnot, but overall across the state, it seems like it's been a pretty good month of April. We talk about these frost freeze events. It seems like they haven't been as impactful this year. I don't know if folks over in Western Kentucky have heard anything, but I haven't heard impacts of that April, was it 22nd freeze event over that way. I know Dr. Knott sent out some information on that, but same way with fruit trees. I went and talked to some of the orchards on Tuesday. They all seem to have pretty good news in place, and I know forages this year, it was much warmer in 2024 compared to 2023. So I know those guys are loving it right now. So, and we've had, enough rain, I should say.
Right.
But yeah, now we're going into the warmer months of the year. I know today it's borderline hot outside a little bit. So we're going to need more and more of these rain events moving forward. So, yep.
Well, I have 2 peach trees in my yard, and last year, of course, we didn't have any blooms, no peaches because of that freeze in the prior December. But this year they're loaded, so I'm gonna have to learn how to learn what to do with peach trees.
The folks out the orchard were extremely happy this year. So I know. And just in case anybody's here in the bluegrass area, FYI, the Eckert's Orchard over in Versailles has strawberries now. So they're coming off.
That sounds good. Anybody else? Anything? All right. Well, I won't keep you, but thanks again for joining. And if there are any special products or anything you'd like to see us present, just let us know. We want this to be useful for folks. And so, yeah, just shoot us an email or let us know. One more thing showed up in the chat from Shane, just for kicks. Here's a link on past Oaks and Derby weather dating back to 1875. So if you go to the Louisville Weather Service site, they have a nice link under the. He says it's right under the news headlines. So that'll be fun to see. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you again back here on June 6th. So thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
Sherry.
you.
See ya.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye y'all.